Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Out of the gate here, just kind of, again, a brief little summary, geopolitically speaking. There's just a couple of stories I want to touch on, but, again, it's kind of a larger umbrella point here. Given the fact, again, that it is psychological warfare and it's happening on a constant basis, the moving parts are moving quickly, and it's confusing. For, again, lots of people, myself included. I'm fully going to admit that. In fact, there's so much happening that it's frankly next to impossible to keep up, let alone have the ability to connect every single dot, and certainly the ones that I think might need connecting. Let me give you a quick little taste here. This was a particular post that was on X by Truth Now, and it had to do again with this admiral, this African-American admiral who was removed for apparently sabotaging Trump's Venezuela strikes. And it said the following here. It said the mainstream media is spinning it as a retirement, quote unquote, but the truth cuts deeper. Admiral Alvin Holsey, there we go, Holsey, former head of the U.S. Southern Command, has been forcibly removed after defying direct operational orders from President Donald J. Trump. This wasn't bureaucracy, it was betrayal. It said the real reason for his removal, Trump's $4.5 billion counteroffensive in Venezuela targeting narco cartel networks, human trafficking routes, and rogue CIA corridors, hit resistance, but not from the enemy, but from within the Pentagon. Holsey stalled intel, blocked drone access, delayed strike approvals. His Southcom unit filtered data and ghosted real-time reconnaissance. That's not hesitation, they said, that's sabotage. They went on here, and they said, and when U.S. Special Forces intercepted a stealth narco submarine moving encrypted drives, crypto wallets, and child trafficking manifests tied to Tren de Aragua and Maduro's regime, everything unraveled. The strike was successful, but the panic it triggered inside the chain of command revealed how deep the infiltration runs. Holsey went silent. The media began their scripted retirement, quote-unquote, narrative within hours. And then it says Trump and Hegseth strike back. According to sources, let's see here, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has ordered the immediate declassification of Pentagon files suppressed during the Biden years, documents linking Obama-era holdovers to the CIA, DOD, and DHS to black budget networks that finance trafficking, narcotics, and biowarfare projects under humanitarian and NGO covers. It says these files expose the mechanics of a criminal alliance that used Venezuela as a command hub for global contraband, weapons, organs, children, and data. Dozens of routes ran through Caribbean and Central American ports under diplomatic protection. These corridors are now being systematically erased by U.S. Special Operations. It says the internal war has begun. Trump's loyalists inside the Pentagon have declared open season on deep state infiltrators. Over 10,000 troops are now deployed across the Caribbean. Multiple black sites, once controlled by rogue CIA fractions, have been seized. Space Force and DARPA units are coordinating with Hegseth's Cyber Task Force to publish redacted treason files, proving that former Pentagon staffers facilitated illegal arms transfers and trafficking protection schemes. Simultaneously, 2 sabotage attempts were foiled within 72 hours, one targeting U.S. radar systems on Puerto Rico's western coast, and the other drone intrusion over a naval intelligence compound in Key West. These weren't random incidents. They were coordinated counterstrikes from the collapsing deep state network. Then it says the final purge. This is not about Venezuela alone. It is about dismantling the logistical arteries of a global trafficking empire stretching from Havana to Kiev. It says the same system that fueled wars, financed coups, and traded in human life. It wraps up again. It says Holsey made a choice to protect the old order, to slow down the storm. He was removed. Trump made his to finish the mission. It says what comes next isn't retirement, it's reckoning. And that apparently is from a Benjamin Fulford. Again, I've heard the name before. You can take it with a grain of salt, I suppose. It's certainly an interesting read. Whether it's true or not, we may never know. However, it's beyond plausible, I think. Again, the simple fact that we are where we are across the globe, so to speak, in numerous avenues, there's no way that it's a singular reason why we are there. Just like what's been going on again in the Middle East, which, by the way, if you're interested, I uploaded a documentary that I found online that is titled Israel's Real Extremism, REEL, and it's an individual over there in Israel going around and talking with IDF soldiers and showing them video about what they've done and the people they've killed and the way that they've treated individuals, and of course the other disgusting things that they've done beyond that. And it's rather impactful. It's about, I'd say, 35, 40 minutes long, 39 minutes specifically, and again, it's very well done and it's undeniable. So again, you throw this back in the faces of the people who are guilty of massive atrocities, and they can't handle it. And certainly our media can't handle it, specifically, again, when it has to do with being told that our government is responsible for child trafficking and drug running and always has been. So, yeah, again, I just think it's completely plausible, without a doubt, that if you're going to attack South American countries and you're going to go after them appropriately, why would you not dismantle the very avenues and trafficking routes that our own government and our own country and previous administrations have been using this entire time? You wouldn't leave those in place. You would have to shut them down. And of course, you would have to eliminate and or arrest the individuals who, again, are Americans who are participating in this also. So again, just because the news says one particular thing doesn't mean that that's exactly what's happening, but on the exact same turn, it doesn't mean that just because something is being reported on social media means that it's real. The truth lies somewhere in the middle. But again, even with that said, we fully understand that not only, of course, does the truth lie somewhere in the middle, but I think it certainly leans more on the spectrum of anything that is further away from the mainstream media. Specifically, again, if they happen to be smaller accounts on social media that are certainly thought-provoking and people are responding and moving it around and writing about it. I mean, again, that post that I just read certainly seems like it's beyond plausible. So, again, it would help for individuals, of course, to have a well-rounded education on real history to fully understand, again, that we aren't the good guys and that, again, previous administrations have not been the good guys, but there are certainly things that are being destroyed right now which are fantastic. Again, there are some concerning things happening as well. And again, a lot of interpretation on a lot of different directions involving a lot of different people and certainly subjects like digital ID and everything else. But even so, I just don't believe that the bad guys are winning by any stretch. I think a great deal of them, again, are either controlled or they're being led along and manipulated in particular directions that are beneficial and advantageous for those who are in charge. But again, the Civil War rages on, and I think it's just going to be that way for quite some time here. With that said, talk about a civil war. Someone released here a printout of the No King's partners and all of the financiers that were responsible for this. And you had a Arabella, looks like Warren Buffett, Ford Foundation, Rockefeller, Soros, Tides, and then it has the grand totals of what they were providing to all of these separate organizations that were direct partners with the No Kings rally thing. So again, hate to break it to those participants who participated, but you're being socially engineered, you're being moved around, you're being manipulated, whether you like it or not, and at the exact same time, massive corporations, the so-called corporations that you don't like, are actually funding it in the first place, bussing people around, making signs, doing whatever it is that they're doing. There's a great deal of organizations here. Some are openly Jewish organizations. Some of them are open education organizations, different leagues of conservation, and a number of other things. And apparently their donations from those multi-billionaires ended up totaling around $294,487,641 and change. Rather interesting. Again, these are the same people and same multi-billionaires that, again, don't care about the common man or woman in America. They aren't interested in that. They could eradicate homelessness in the blink of an eye by just snapping their fingers, but they don't. They give their money to these other organizations, which of course steal a great deal of it, give very little and sprinkle very little on the brainwashed individuals who attend those rallies in the first place. And then everybody walks away from those rallies who again, willfully attend them, and they actually believe that they've accomplished something. It's sad, really, because again, they're being led around on a leash by the very people that they claim to criticize and the people that they claim that they want to defund. So it's an embarrassing state of affairs, no doubt about it. But again, with that aside, let me mention this here, again, sliding into education. This right here, again, is a tall ask. And this is showing, again, that not only does the Civil War rage on, but some of these educational institutions just cannot exist anymore. And if they do, they're going to continue to exist probably for a shorter period of time. And they're going to collapse under the weight of their own inability to actually change in a positive direction and be productive. Again, there is purposeful division in our country because it was designed that way. I mean, it is purposeful. But again, this was from Breitbart, and it was titled, "Top Universities Rejecting Trump's Plan to Make Them Fair and Balanced." Again, shouldn't be surprising to anybody. They're communist institutions. This is exactly what they do. They scheme and meddle behind closed doors. They scoff at anything having to do with any conservatives whatsoever. Hell, there was a Illinois state teaching assistant who was just fired after walking up to some Charlie Kirk, I don't know, TPUSA table and ripping it to shreds. And of course, he got fired and has lost his job now, and that's predictable. But again, a lot of these people are just flat out unhinged. Again, they're not well, and they're acting on things, again, that are not real. That's the real embarrassing part. It says the following here. It says the Trump administration is finding that getting some of the country's most prestigious universities to be more politically diverse is a heavy lift, even when the schools are offered funding priority. Dartmouth College, for example, over the weekend joined the University of Virginia in rejecting the Trump administration's offer to preferential funding in exchange for agreeing to overhaul or abolish departments and oppose conservative ideas and other far-reaching stipulations. It says UVA and the Ivy League school in Hanover, New Hampshire, are 2 of 9 schools approached by the administration with the, quote, Compact for Academic Excellence in Higher Education, unquote. Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, have also rejected the offer, as well as Brown University and the University of Pennsylvania and the University of Southern California. Again, it shouldn't shock anybody that this is the case, because these people would like to rule over their own ashes. It says only 3 universities reportedly have yet to decide on the proposal: Vanderbilt University, University of Arizona, and the University of Texas at Austin, also all left-wing, by and large. It says in a letter to Education Secretary Linda McMahon, Dartmouth President Cyan Lee Belloc, I'm saying that right, don't care, wrote the following, quote, I do not believe that the involvement of the government through a compact, whether it is a Republican or Democrat-led White House, is the right way to focus America's leading colleges and universities on their teaching and research mission, unquote. Well, again, that's funny because their statement is false. Who said anything about you being leading colleges and universities? It's rather subjective, is it not? It says some of the proposal stipulations include banning the use of race, sex, and religion in hiring and admission, freezing tuition rates for 5 years, capping the undergraduate enrollment of foreign students to 15%, and requiring the applicants take the SAT or a similar admission test. Again, why is that a tall ask? Why is that inappropriate in some way? It says the compact also seeks to restore order on campuses plagued by protests and disruptions. This is where the anti-Semitism thing probably comes in. Again, this is not about left or right. It's just about whether or not the truth is being told here. This is particularly common with appearances by conservative speakers and in the anti-Israel demonstrations of late. It states the following, quote, universities shall neither support nor permit a heckler's veto through, for example, disruptions, violence, intimidation, or vandalism. Again, that seems rather straightforward. Universities shall be responsible for ensuring that they do not knowingly, number one, permit actions by the university, university employees, university students, or individuals external to the university community to delay or disrupt class instruction or disrupt libraries or other traditional study locations. Again, it's disorderly conduct, and they're saying don't allow disorderly conduct, and the universities are saying, well, if we want to have it, then we can have it. Number two, it says allow demonstrators to heckle or accost individual students or groups of students. Or three, allow obstruction of access to parts of campus based on students' race, ethnicity, nationality, or religion. Unquote. It then says, in his message to Secretary McMahon, UVA interim president Paul Mahoney wrote that the university agrees, quote, with many of the principles outlined in the compact, but, quote, we seek no special treatment in exchange for improving them, including, quote, a thriving marketplace of ideas, institutional neutrality, and equal treatment of students, unquote. Seems fair. It says the other universities who rejected the compact cited a variety of reasons for not joining into the agreement, among them administrators that said funding should be administered on scientific merit and not central approval by the federal government. It says the most hyperbolic rejection came from Governor Gavin Newsom, Democrat, California, no surprise there, who threatened to pull state funding from any California university that agreed to the terms of the compact. There you go. Like a good communist. What a nutbag. In his statement, he employed all caps. He pushed the caps lock button, typically used in social media to signify yelling. The governor wrote, quote, if any California university signs this radical agreement, they'll lose billions in state funding, including Cal grants, instantly. California will not bankroll schools that sell out their students, professors, researchers, and surrender academic freedom, unquote. I don't think anybody's surrendering academic freedom. I think that the ask is rather simple. Don't allow for disorderly conduct and don't encourage it, because you're encouraging misdemeanor, if not felonious behavior, depending on the level of the crime and the frequency of the crime. Again, these people are fine ruling over the ashes. It does not bother them in the slightest. But again, when it comes to fiscal responsibility, nice little segue here, I put together another Substack regarding the local school district in the town where I live. And as I've said before, if anybody wants to fill their shorts in the blink of an eye in total anger and rage, the fastest way that you can do that is by making an open records request regarding the local school district in whatever town you live in, specifically regarding, of course, their purchase orders throughout an entire academic year. And this is what I highlight specifically in this Substack article titled, Talawanda School District's Fiscal Negligence, the Wasteful and Questionable Spending of an Ohio School District. Now again, let me give you just a brief demographic and sort of geographic layout of the area around here. It's a university town, it's a small school district, and it's by and large suburban and rural. That's essentially it. It has one high school, one middle school, and 3 elementary schools. And the amount of money that they are wasting actually totals, let me give you a brief little total before I run through some of the specifics here. It's approximately $373,009.66, at least. And these are just the numbers, again, that stood out to me personally when I looked at this document. So first of all, as I lay out in the article, one of the things that happens very consistently among school districts is they absolutely have, apparently anyway, no problem believing that taxpayer money is their money. That, well, the taxpayers give it to them and they get to spend it however they want. Well, That's not true. That's not the way that that's supposed to work. And unfortunately, if the general public understood the petty way in which rather a lot of this money gets spent, I think it would be an absolute outrage to them. Case in point, one of the specifics that typically occurs when it comes to spending, and again, you can call it a perk, I suppose, if you want, but it's just misappropriation. That's really what it is that you have these individuals, again, specifically building administrators or front office staff or what have you, the ones who make the most amount of money inside of a school district. And one of the first things that they'll do is they'll give them all free cell phones. Now, it's not just that they give them free cell phones, and it's not just, again, that they give them high-end cell phones or even pay for their entire cell phone bill. But one of the things that happens is that every single time that a brand new cell phone comes out, they'll trade in their old one and they'll just get a new one. Which means, again, are they paying for it with their own salaries, which they easily could because they make enough money to do so? I mean, hell, I see homeless people with cell phones. So it's not like you need a bunch of money to have a cell phone. But why is it that the taxpayers are paying for the cell phones of school district administrators? Again, a person would say, well, it's not much of an expense, who cares? Well, as it turns out, in this school district, their Verizon wireless bill is $3,537.66, and that's just over the span of 5 months. That in July of 2024, they spent $8,761.49 on Verizon Wireless. So again, is that just cell phone bills, or is everybody getting a brand new Apple iPhone? I mean, I think we can take a guess. Because as you watch these numbers decline and whittle down, they actually get a little bit smaller. It goes from being over $8,000 down to about $975 in the month of December of 2025. So everybody's getting a brand new cell phone, allegedly, and then all of a sudden you're just down to paying a bill, allegedly. Again, but the rub with all of this is the following, that when you ask for the purchase orders in an alphabetized or collated document showing you exactly where the money is going, they may not tell you, no matter how often you ask, specifically what each dollar amount is for. Now, you would think that they would, but that's probably not going to happen. And therein lies the problem. Now, moving down the Substack a little bit here, it gets into, again, the amount of money that's spent at the grocery store, Kroger's. Now, I don't believe this for a minute that this is the only thing that they're spending at Kroger's, but admittedly so, based on an open records request, the treasurer herself openly stated the following, quote, "I will tell you that the recipient will be redacted as these gas cards are used for our homeless population." So the implication here, of course, is that Kroger gas cards are being purchased for the homeless. And that's why the money amounts exist in the way that a person can look at these money amounts. From January to December of 2024, unless, of course, these dates are cut in half. So the latter half of the months are 2024 and the first half of the month, so to speak, are 2025. Either way, it almost doesn't matter. What does matter, of course, are the totals and then the amount of money that's being spent per month. For Kroger alone, the Talawanda School District, again, small school district, spent $12,567.89 at Kroger's. Even more specifically and suspiciously, all of those amounts for every single month, except for 2 months. 1 month, my apologies, only 1 month. Every single one of them is a whole amount at the end. It's 0 cents. So, are they gift cards? They could be, but as we all know, gift cards can be spent a million different ways, which means, again, if you ask the question to a school district, what are you spending on said gift card? They might tell you something that might not be completely untrue, but are they going to tell you everything? Probably not. Again, it begs the question, is a school district a charitable organization, or are they supposed to be an institution of learning and teaching. If you want to be a charitable organization to the homeless, then hire them as employees. That's all you have to do. Hire them again as custodians, hire them as food service workers, give them a paycheck. That's how you create productive individuals. But taking taxpayer dollars and giving the homeless and or anybody else free Kroger gift cards is a bit absurd. Again, we're talking about $12,567.89 in the span of a year. That's a lot of money. And again, when you look at that amount of money, how many people would like a pay raise? Education assistants, custodians, food service workers, you name it. The money can always be spent different ways and in better ways than even sending a school teacher into a Kroger's to swipe a card to buy gifts for students. I've been against that my entire career. I mean, hell, I was against that back in the early 2000s when I first started teaching and first heard that that was a thing. And I actually went on one of those trips once, and it was awful. I hated it. The school principal gave another teacher, and I was asked to go with them. Okay, but I did. I didn't like it, but I went. They gave this other teacher a credit card. And they said, go into Toys R Us and buy toys for students. And I went, are we a toy store or are we a school? What is going on? And they didn't much like that response. Well, we need these for this and we need these for that, and it's an incentive and XYZ. No. Success is supposed to be its own incentive. It's that simple. Well, not everybody thinks that way, and whatever else, and motivating, and we have to motivate them this way and that way, and we have to dangle carrots in front of their noses, and then they'll finally do what we want them to do. I mean, come on. As you're aware, again, this is the calculated dumbing down of the entire profession. This is the dumbing down not just of the profession, but of our society and our fellow Americans, and this is exactly how it gets done. So again, ask for the purchase orders, and I'm telling you, it's wild. They also spent a great deal of money at La Rosa's Pizza here in town. And in the month of July, they spent $1,800. Again, what are you doing? If you're a school district taking somebody out to lunch, if you're the hiring party, I mean, okay, I understand, again, perhaps wanting to do that. Certainly if you're bringing in an employee or you're hiring somebody or, you're engaging in some search committee kind of thing, I mean, okay, fine. But does it have to be 6 months out of the year? Do you have to do it with everybody? Are you taking new teachers to La Rosa's Pizza and sitting them down and eating that slop? I mean, come on. There's just other ways to spend this money. And again, I always look at money like this, and I just think of all of the whining that everybody does about how much, or how little rather, money that they're getting paid. And it's valid. It's beyond valid, specifically when it comes to education assistants. They're paid the least, by and large. But it gets worse. That's not the worst part yet. How about the box stores? In a 4-month span, Talawanda School District spent $5,600 at Ace Hardware. Again, what for? They spent $5,000 in July. On what? And why are they all whole amounts? There's no sense. They, by and large, end in zero, certainly when it comes to Ace Hardware. Then you have Walmart. The numbers go up, ladies and gentlemen. Over the course of an entire year, they spent $33,991.35 at Walmart. As a district, on the district credit cards. Taxpayer money. What for? What'd you buy? Predictably, of course, in the month of August, where school starts, they spent $13,362.48. Okay, what on? What'd you get? Is it dog food? Is it a t-shirt for your kid? That's a lot of money. And then Amazon. This is where the rubber meets the road and the bullet hits the bone. Amazon.com. In the span of 1 year, the Talawanda School District spent $120,372.98. And most of these are cents amounts. Of course, there's no whole amounts. Because on Amazon.com, you can't control the amount of course, shipping cost, let alone the entire cost. As opposed to Kroger's, of course, or Ace Hardware, where you can buy gift cards at whole amounts with no cents attached. $200, $5,000, $100, $300. Not so with Amazon. Again, it's highly suspicious. This is a level of waste that exists in every school district, and you'd better believe the larger the school district, the more the waste. Now again, there's a fine line between waste and stealing. Me personally, I'm leaning on the fence more in the stealing category, because that's really what it is. This goes on here. They gave the city of Oxford $22,250.60. And this is where it even gets stranger. They're giving outside school districts copious amounts of money, and I'm trying to figure out why. Some of it might be tied to sports. Some of it might be, bus travel for some reason or another. I don't know why. But it says Cincinnati City Schools in just 1 month, for just 1 month, in one calendar year, they gave $2,146.51. Does this mean that we're sending students to these other schools and paying for these other students who are in our geographic area to go to these other locations and attend school there instead? The Children's Home of Cincinnati, Ohio. They just had one purchase here, apparently, or one payment in March to this group to the tune of $7,350. Council for Exceptional Children, they spent a total across 3 months of $903. Educational Services Center of Central Ohio, $2,375 across 2 months. Hamilton City School District, the neighboring school district in this county, over the course of 4 months, they gave them a total of $16,977.51. Why? Harrison Junior High School across 2 months, $225. Middletown City School District in October, they gave them $10,000. What for? Toledo Physical Education. I don't even know where that is. One payment in November of 2024, I believe, for $414.38. Warren County Educational Services Center, $5,000. What for? In 1 month. University of Cincinnati Conservatory of Music, they gave them $800 for 1 month. And University of Kansas Monarch Watch. Why? Butterflies? You gave $249 for what? Butterfly watching at the University of Kansas? Is that a trip? Was that a video? What was that? It's stupid is what it is, and it shouldn't happen. This is why these school districts have to be doged. All of them. And then, of course, their legal fees. There's at least 4 law firms affiliated, or I should say 3, including the Ohio Attorney General's office of Dave Yost. To Bricker and Graydon LLP, one of their major law firms, they spent $15,140 across 5 months. Another law firm, $11,294 across 2 months. Another law firm, $943 across 1 month. And Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost received across 6 months, $8,292.75, possibly for background checks. I'm guessing, of course, but that's possible. And then apparently the school district has at least 3 credit cards. One in the possession of the superintendent, one the treasurer, and one for somebody else. And again, if you ask for the purchase orders of those, Do they match these purchase orders, or are they different purchase orders? And then, of course, there's a separate fund having to do with sports, an athletic fund. And the question I simply ask is, if you have pay to play and you're receiving money to play a particular sport, I mean, that's fine, and I think it should be that way. But the parents or families or whoever is paying for that money to have their child and or family member play a sport or multiple sports, they should know what that money is going to, should they not? Of course, the general explanation is always, well, it's equipment. It's school equipment. It's sporting equipment. It's this, it's that, it's whatever, it's whatever else. I mean, okay, fine. But show the parents where the money is going. I'm not saying that they don't do that. I'm just asking the question whether or not they actually do. Seems like something that they should provide for people. But again, that's just me. Again, there's a large sporting complex in Hamilton that is called Spooky Nook. It's a terrible name. I don't know who came up with it or whose idea that was. But over the course of 3 months, they gave them $16,000. That's a lot of money. What for? Are they renting it out for particular, sporting events or dances or something? Is there a dance taking place in February or August or September? It just seems odd. It seems, again, a little bit like money laundering, with no explanation being provided specifically as to what this is going toward. You get down to the media here, they spend $5,408 on subscriptions to the New York Times, so it seems. Or are you just giving money to the New York Times because you think that you're a charitable organization? Again, in 2 months, June and August. Seems strange. And then, of course, they give $600 to the local rag newspaper in this town also. And then they claim, of course, that it's probably for ad space, that they're buying ad space. Well, still seems like a donation. Not to mention, again, they have a school employee who sits on the board of directors of that newspaper. Seems like a conflict of interest. And then finally, ladies and gentlemen, highly suspicious, at the very bottom of this entire 29-page PDF, which you can actually take a look at because I have a link to it on the old interwebs in the description, rather, at the very top of the Substack article. But at the very bottom of the document itself, there's a section that just says blank. And then it has February, March, April, May, July, August, September, October, November, December, with money amounts that are all in whole amounts with no cents except for two orders, one in what appears to be May and the other one in March, totaling $50,702.66. So they're not even saying what that's for. What are you buying? And what did you buy in July that cost $11,845.00? Again, this totaled, if you add in that blank section, it totaled $373,009.66 approximately. It's embarrassing. And then here in the state, based on tax values and increased tax rates and what have you, the school system is claiming that they might end up losing or not be given by the state $542,000, or at the very least $242,000. Well, it's pretty clear that you have the money, you're just wasting it and or stealing it or misappropriating it. So I'm telling you, these larger school districts and wherever it is that you live, if you make an open records request for this kind of a document, you're going to get all you can handle, and you're going to get pissed. And then again, these school districts wonder why their levies don't pass. Well, it's pretty clear. Your levies don't pass because you're wasting money. And your levies don't pass because the taxed don't like being taxed multiple times, let alone permanently taxed. Again, a lot of these school levies are permanent taxes. The one in Westerville, to my knowledge, which they're proposing, of course, and is going to be on the ballot in a couple of weeks, not only is that an income tax, but it's a permanent income tax. That's a kick in the teeth. And I don't see that passing in the slightest. Again, before, I can't believe I have to say this, before a levy even is thought of in the brain of anybody, you'd better completely change the brand of hamburger bun to a cheaper hamburger bun that you're using in a school cafeteria or a district's cafeteria, multiple cafeterias, before you even consider a levy. That is the length to which school districts should go to save money. Yes, eliminate positions. Don't fill them back in. Yes, take pay cuts. Make that temporary until, financial systems or the government or the state of affairs in your state or nationwide, whatever, improve. But again, you should be looking for different hamburger buns first also. Or maybe you just don't have hamburgers anymore and you save money that way. You limit the amount and or variety of the kinds of foods, and no, students won't starve. Well, we need a variety because we want a healthy diet. It's prison food anyway. It has nothing to do with any of that really. Just limit the options, make them smaller. Again, the amount of money that they spend, that this district spends on food, is incredible. It's incredible. Imagine larger school districts, same thing. But that's where you can make cuts too. I mean, hell, when I went to high school, we had soft serve ice cream. A lot of these schools have soft serve ice cream. Why? Pizza every day. Spicy chicken sandwiches every day. Sounds not half bad. But again, no wonder everybody's poisoned and feels like garbage. Your tax dollars are going to poisoning your fellow Americans. And school districts are 100% fine with it. Filling up pop machines and God knows what else. Again, is it necessary? Does it need to exist? These are the questions, again, that everybody should be asking themselves, certainly around this time of a year during an election season. So specifically in this article, again, when I bring up the business of levies, this is a huge misconception, again, that somehow increasing the taxes for individuals is somehow going to have a return on investment when it comes to academic performance and or a better environment. It's asinine. It says the following here: in fact, a public school levy of any type, funded by income tax or property tax, can have endless negative socioeconomic effects on a community, such as, number one, increased tax burden. It says the following: a new or increased income tax levy raises the overall tax burden on working residents, reducing their disposable income. For low and middle income households, this can strain budgets, limiting spending in essentials like housing, healthcare, or savings. For example, a 1% income tax increase in a district could cost a family earning $50,000 annually or an additional, $500 per year, which may disproportionately impact lower earners. Yeah, taxation is theft, but they're already stealing. Number two, economic inequality. Income-based levies can exacerbate inequality. Higher income households may absorb the tax more easily, while lower income families face a heavier relative burden. Unlike property tax levies, which are tied to wealth, home ownership, for example, income tax levies directly reduce take-home pay, potentially hitting working families or working-class families harder. Of course. And again, the callous nature in which school districts do this without thinking about all of those individuals who are actually sending their children to the surrounding school district or that specific school district asking for the levy is astounding. Number 3, a disincentive to work or earn. Income taxes can marginally discourage work or higher earnings as individuals keep less of their income. This effect is typically small, but could rather influence decisions about overtime, second jobs, or career advancement, particularly in high tax areas. Again, just to wrap up here, business and job impacts. There's a potential, of course, for misallocation, which I think I just laid out, certainly in the Substack above. Number 6, community division. There's no doubt that that's happening. And then finally, number 7, economic out-migration. In extreme cases, high or repeated tax increases may drive residents or businesses to move to lower tax jurisdictions, shrinking the local tax base. This is more likely in areas with already high taxes or where the levy's benefits, for example, school improvements, quote unquote, are not clearly demonstrated. Yeah. This is the problem. It destroys cities. Look at New York City. Look what's happening there. Look at the constant debate having to do with New York City and bringing in a communist mayor who wants to raise everybody's income taxes. People will leave in droves because they're already leaving. Why would they stay when taxes are going to continue to go up? And of course, here in the state of Ohio, when it comes to their education system, if the taxes go up in a particular area, certainly when it comes to a public school levy, well, you can take that money, it becomes yours, and you can use it toward your children's private education. So the public school doesn't get it. They're shooting themselves in the foot, and then they're asking for more. In fact, I want to read this just kind of in conclusion here. Local resident Scotty King, husband of Dawn King, who sits on the current Talawanda School Board here in town, he put this out a while back, I believe on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook, but it was sent my way, and it's interesting. And again, it has to do with school districts that actually advocate for, specifically rather, public school districts. If they advocate for ed choice, they'll find themselves actually spending less money, thereby potentially receiving a little bit more from the state. But of course, they'd have to consolidate their buildings and they'd have to actually do their jobs and move things around a little bit. So it says the following here: why encourage more ed choice instead? It said if more families opt for ed choice, our enrollment drops and we educate fewer kids. That saves on variable costs, for example, classroom supplies, staffing ratios, etc., without losing local tax revenue, which is based on property values, not head count. The state foots the voucher bill separately, up to $8,407 per student, while we avoid spending $14,000 locally. It's like offloading costs to the state without the district taking the hit. In Butler County alone, vouchers totaled $15.7 million last year, mostly going to non-low-income families. For Talawanda, more ed choice means less pressure on our levies and budgets, especially since expansions make it available to nearly everyone. Even billionaires get at least partial aid. It says critics say that vouchers drain public funds overall, and they're right, statewide. It's $700 million plus diverted. But for our district specifically, with minimal state aid, it reduces local spending needs. It's not ideal, but in financial troubles like potential cuts to programs or another levy ask, it's a pragmatic way to balance the books without shortchanging enrolled kids, unquote. It's certainly an interesting strategy. But again, with political ideologues wanting to maintain the brick and mortar system and the thing that they are familiar with and, mentally and emotionally somehow hooked to, like it's the only thing that needs to exist and that everybody else is the enemy, that if you're not learning in a public building, then there's something wrong with you. As long as the people believing that nonsense are actually running the entire ship, they're going to drive it right into an iceberg whether they know it or not. It's only a matter of time, which again is why these individuals who sit on school boards, they have to understand that they have to change the business model that is the American public school system, or it will fall flat. And as I've said before, still waiting for it to happen. We're getting close. I mean, some people have come close. They've gone so far as, again, just to basically, I don't know, have a walkout and walk out of school and hold some sign and say, I don't like this school policy. That's why I'm walking out and, I'm protesting today. Well, if you don't like the policies, walk away forever, if you can. Because as I've said before, in the future, it's only going to be left for the mentally handicapped and the physically disabled. And again, unfortunately, there are some circumstances where you might not even be handicapped or physically disabled, certainly your children, but you'll still have to send them to a public school anyway. Again, this is where it becomes remarkably detrimental to even them. That if the bar were raised for them at that stage of the game, would raising that bar even be feasible? I don't know. It's uncharted waters to some extent because, again, we're watching this system crumble. Because it has to. But everything crumbles. I just wish that, again, people would start to see the other end of it and what could actually happen on the other end. But to bring it full circle, how about you just stop spending so much money on Amazon gift cards and Amazon stuff and Kroger gift cards and trips to La Rosa's to take somebody out to lunch for an interview? What a waste of money. So don't ever think about asking for a levy. Certainly not around here, because you'll never get one. Won't happen. Twice as many people voted against the last levy in 2022 than people who voted for it. You'll never get it. And if they tried an income tax levy, it'll be equally as laughable, because there's no way they'll get that either. Just like I have no qualms about saying that Westerville City Schools in Central Ohio will not receive their levy. It's not going to happen. It's like, again, like I said in the last episode, putting your hand in a car door and slamming it. I mean, who's going to do that? But we need this. No, you don't. You need to do your job. Hamburger buns, ladies and gentlemen. It's all about hamburger buns. Find cheaper hamburger buns. That's how low you have to go to cut costs. And it's necessary. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening as always, and I will catch you on Friday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.